Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping have begun talks in a restricted format in the ancient city of Xi'an, which is also incidentally the president's hometown. This is where Prime Minister Modi arrived this morning to begin his 3-day visit to China, something that's been talked about a lot since Prime Minister Modi landed there in Xi'an, about how significant it is and how China has departed from protocol to begin Prime Minister Modi's visit to China, not from Beijing but from Xi'an. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on a 3-day visit, and these are pictures that you're seeing of those talks taking place. Well, they've been underway for about an hour now, expected to end in a short while from now. And these are restricted and informal talks, and formal talks likely to take place in Beijing tomorrow between the two leaders.
This is certainly the most important meeting in a sense that is taking place on this visit. President Xi, the most important and most powerful leader here in China, and of course the Indian Prime Minister. And so this is an opportunity for the two leaders to talk about all the issues that are on the table between the two countries, all the commonalities and certainly all the contentious issues as well. And we were told in the run-up to this meeting that all those contentious issues were expected to be brought up, whether it was a reiteration of India's objection to the stapled visas for Arunachal residents, Chinese investments in POK, which are totaling now to $46 billion that was announced by President Xi last month, and over which India has already lodged a diplomatic protest. Also, the issue of the trade imbalance, which is now at some $48 billion and skewed hugely in China's favor. And that is something that is probably top of the Prime Minister's agenda, because on the boundary and all, there really is it is very unlikely that there'll be any, sort of big forward movement or substantive movement on that front. However, it is on trade and the economy that the two sides are hoping that they can, at least transform the relationship. So addressing that imbalance is going to be very, very key. There are going to be some 20 business deals signed during this trip, which will be worth about $10 billion. And, the two countries are hoping that that sort of lays the foundation, for a new relationship. I can also tell you that when the two leaders, had their photo op, they spoke briefly to the cameras and to the reporters there, and the Prime Minister recalled, basically said how proud he was, to be representing India, and the way he was welcomed and received in Xi'an, and the President of China saying in Chinese that he recalled the kind of hospitality that he had got when he visited Mr. Modi's hometown, and that he was happy to receive Mr. Modi in his hometown. So certainly the two leaders do enjoy a good personal rapport. I think it is an opportunity for them to transform the relationship. The question really then, the challenges really lie in all the irritants that continue to exist in the relationship, a certain level of mistrust that certainly continues to be there. And also just implementing whatever is announced. Apart from signing MOUs, I think the important test will be how those MOUs are implemented on the ground and how quickly. Bani.
Right, and Nidhi, what's expected on the agenda in the course of the day? We know that the Prime Minister visited the famous Terracotta Warrior Museum. What's he likely to do next after these talks get over?
Well, he's going to be also going to the Wild Goose Pagoda with President Xi. Both of them are going to go there. The structure that was built in the memory of the famous Chinese Buddhist monk who had come to India many centuries ago and then documented his travels. Apart from that, there's also going to be a traditional Tang Dynasty ceremony that the Prime Minister will be witnessing. I'm told it's going to be quite spectacular. And I'm sure from all the scenes that you've seen from Mr. Modi's welcome this morning to the course of the day, there certainly, there are no holds barred here in China when it comes to hospitality, and just the sort of wow factor, as it were, when it comes to ceremony and pomp and so on. So that ceremony is later this evening, shortly after 6 o'clock local time, and that will be followed by a banquet that the President is hosting for the Prime Minister, who will then fly here to Beijing late tonight, and then early tomorrow morning, at about 10 o'clock local time, early morning in India, he will begin his formal talks and have a ceremonial formal welcome at the Great Hall of the People, the historic Great Hall of the People here, which is not too far from where I am right now. And there will be press statements and agreements that will be signed before the Prime Minister then heads to one of the universities here in Beijing. He is expected to make an address there, and also perhaps take some questions from students. That will take place tomorrow afternoon. Then he will also witness a yoga Tai Chi demonstration with Premier Li Keqiang at the Temple of Heaven in Beijing, a part of a sort of a soft diplomacy, as it were, that the Prime Minister has in particular been emphasizing on, looking at ways of reaching out to China through, soft diplomacy, through yoga, through Buddhism, through his joining of the social media here called Weibo. And there will be that demonstration, which again promises to be quite a visually spectacular event. And that then will wrap up his Beijing leg of the visit. He then moves on to Shanghai late night tomorrow. And in Shanghai, will be meeting Indian and Chinese CEOs, as well as an address to the Indian community. Also another visit to a university there on Saturday, where he will again be making a speech.